All right, let's get started. Well, I'm excited for this conversation today. We have a great collection of people. So we're calling this webinar CPQ Myths Busted. We have two great myth busters to help us with that. Whether you're on live or on demand, we're glad that you're here. We hope everything is going well. I can't believe we're almost in October already. So we're excited to be talking about CPQ. We know that CPQ is a critical part of the business, and getting it right is really complex, and getting something that's easy, intuitive, and feels effortless can feel daunting. So we're here to talk about, how do you find that right platform? How do you find the right solution? How do you create that experience? And what are sort of the myths that have gotten in the way so far? So we have Rohit Garewal today, the CEO at OpticEdge, and Ken Ailes, who's the CPQ leader at Oracle, to talk about some of these myths and misconceptions. Before I get into them, just some housekeeping. This will be very conversational. I'm excited for these two to start chatting. And you can jump in at any time. There are two ways of doing that with this webinar. You can ask a question in the questions panel, or you can post in the chat. We'll try to get to your chats or comments or questions, and we'll follow up if we can't with you directly. And if you have to drop off for any reason, this webinar will be available on demand. We'll be sending out that recording in a couple of days. So with that, I'll introduce myself. I'm the VP of Marketing at OpticEdge. I'm Sarah Falcon, and I'm excited to introduce Ken and Rohit. Ken Ailes is a CPQ leader at Oracle. He's been with Oracle since 2005 and leading CPQ teams since 2015. He's worked with many of Oracle's largest CPQ customers across all industries, helping them transform their digital selling experience. Rohit Garewal is CEO at OpticEdge. He's a forward-thinking digital evangelist, really focused on solving the challenges that the B2B sector faces. He works with complex global enterprises and leads CPQ commerce and design enablement that creates effortless digital experiences. So with that, welcome, Ken and Rohit.
Great to be.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah. To kick off the conversation, since we're talking about myths, I wanted to ask you both and ask the crowd to join in too. What are your favorite myths that got busted, since everything changed in 2020? Ken, why don't you take this one first?
I think the biggest myth that got busted is that French fries are good via delivery. They're not. I don't care who it is. I don't care how close you live to the place. French fries are not good when delivered. Now, all honesty, I think the biggest thing is that I think a lot of companies really thought that they knew their customers really, really well, and they knew how their customers like to buy and those kind of things. And I think the biggest thing that 2020 did was really upended how well we thought we knew our customers and how well our customers wanted to buy, and that we were prepared, to be able to service our customers any way that we wanted to. I think a lot of companies, I don't want to say we're caught flat-footed, but, well, I think we're all caught flat-footed, but good grief, we all got caught by surprise. And I think the biggest thing that it really pointed out was we were all kind of lacking on the way that we really serviced our customers, and we didn't know our customers and our buying habits as well as we thought that we did. Rohit?
Yeah, look, by far the biggest myth is that NFL rookie quarterbacks are any good. My fantasy team is a testament to that. Other than that one, let's see. I'm going to go with the myth that, and I know this could be touchy, so this is going to be very industry specific, is that we need to be in an office. When I started consulting at the big fives, about 20 some years ago, there was this feeling that you have to be at the client site. As a contractor or as a consultant, you have to be at the client site. We used to fly all over the world. We used to stay in hotels, 250 days a year, 200,000 miles. And that started going away way before COVID. Gosh, I'd say it's been about 10 to 12 years since we've had to be on the client site to do a software implementation full time. But there was this myth that I used to partake in as well. But at the same time, we need offices for our employees to be together to implement software. And I can tell you, over 2020 and 2021, for our industry at least, that myth has been busted. Our team is doing phenomenal work, as our teams across the globe, adjusting, adapting, improvising, leveraging technology in ways that we never thought we'd have to deliver great work. And so that would be an amazing kind of thing. And it's going to be fascinating to see how this changes the world moving forward. I don't think it's done yet. So yeah, myth for me is that in order to implement software, we've all got to be in the same office at the same time to get that done.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks you both. It really has been sort of a seismic shift in what we expected going into 2020 to where we are looking at going into 2022. And I wanted to dig now sort of into the sort of business trends and trends we're seeing in CPQ. And I think, Rohit, you have some things to share on where we're seeing changes in the market, trends in how CPQ works within businesses and what businesses are needing for future facing.
Yeah. Thanks, Sarah. Let me just do a quick infrastructure check. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Great. Yeah, I won't go too much into this here. When we talk about CPQ and that entire workflow, what are we really talking about? We're talking about growth. We're talking about helping clients, whether you're in B2B, whether you're in financial services, healthcare, or telco, pick your industry of choice. Fundamentally, you're building digital experiences, right? For your employees, for your partners, distributors, resellers, customers, so that you're easier to do business with. And CPQ is right smack in the middle of that. Many customers, many of our clients use CPQ to enable their sales reps. They also use CPQ to enable their partners. And again, depending on the industry, that could be a reseller, a VAR, a distributor, whatever that might be. And so CPQ is going to be helping these clients be easier to do business with by empowering their employees or empowering their partners. But before you even get into that, you have to talk about, well, where is the market heading, right? Why are you going to be enabling your reps right now? Why do you need to be easier to do business with? And for me personally, I subscribe to many different types of economic news sources. One of my favorite is ITR. ITR is a leading indicator source for, they use leading indicators to define where they think the economy is going. They've been pretty spot on for the last decade. I've been using them. Their numbers show they're about 98 to 99% accurate, unless there's kind of an existential shock. And so when in the latest readout that we got just a few weeks ago, ITR is predicting, cutting straight to the chase, that we're going to have robust growth in the United States over the next 3 years. So 2022, 2023, 2024, B2B is going to be showing robust growth, not only in North America, but worldwide potentially. Now, there might be some trends that might throw some hiccups, right? We're seeing what's happening in China right now, but the macroeconomic story holds. Low interest rates and a lot of money printing. Now, we don't need to go on in terms of what that looks like for the end of the decade. They're not as bullish by the end of the decade, but if the economy is going to be growing, then we need to be prepared as customers and as service providers to take advantage of that growth. So let me just show you a couple of things here. So 2021, if you take a look at these monthly trends and leading indicators, you can show that the leading indicators right now, which predict out 8 months, are showing really, really nice improvements in the production side of the economy. So we've already seen the retail side go through the roof, right? Money being sent out, checks being sent out. The demand side of the equation at the consumer level has been really high. And we know that that's a leading indicator for the B2B manufacturing distribution space. So retail is a leading indicator for B2B. So we're seeing that across the board. If you take a look at ITR's leading indicators that they look at, sales indicators, financial indicators, the global PMI, the G7s, everything is on the rise. So we might be a little concerned because the stock market's gone crazy and, you know, asset prices are through the roof, inflation could be an issue. Those are all true statements. But the reality is the macroeconomic story still holds. Low rates, a lot of printing, which means that, again, over the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to see incredible growth. Just a couple more here across different industries, right? Non-defense capital good orders, excluding aircrafts, showing leading indicator growth of 9.5%. You're looking at gross domestic product change to $2012, surpassing where we were and continuing to grow in 2022, and they're predicting that out through 23 and 24. Non-private construction lending, so this is non-residential, so commercial buildings, even with people working more from home, again, all the leading indicators are moving towards growth. So I've got more screens, but I'm going to pause for a second because this is what really matters. The reason that we are so bullish and we're having this conversation today on CPQ or empowering your sales reps or empowering your partners to sell more is because demand is going to continue to grow over the next 36 months by all accounts of what we're seeing here in North America. And so if you're not making yourself easier to do business with and others are, you are going to get a lower piece of that pie. You're going to grow organically, but fundamentally speaking, if you're not easy to do business with to take advantage of this growth, you're going to be missing out on a once in a lifetime opportunity because who knows what's going to happen 4, 5, 6 years from now when all of this printing and all this stuff catches up with us. So we've got an opportunity over the next 3 years, Sarah, to really help our clients capture this growth. And CPQ is an enabling solution to sales reps and partners in order to do that.
Great. Well, thank you. And this leads nicely to our first myth. I wanted to do a quick poll though of our audience, asking, you know, where are you struggling right now with CPQ? And then we'll jump into our first myth, which is, you know, CPQ is going to be too expensive and too time consuming. So as we're balancing out all of this economic growth, where does CPQ fit into the mix of spend and opportunity? But let me get everyone's thoughts here first. So you can pick as many as you want to share, you know, where you're struggling currently with your CPQ.
Yeah, and Sarah.
Oh, go ahead, Ken.
No, I was just going to pile on, you know, while we're talking about what we're seeing right now. You know, I think from our side, we're seeing, I'd say 3 trends. Number one is a lot of companies that, you know, going into the pandemic, they already had a commerce environment. They were selling simple goods, right? Green, red, extra large, whatever it may be. And that worked because for the more complex selling, they were still able to accomplish that in person through a reseller, something like that. Well, obviously with the way everything changed, now we're seeing a lot of our customers that are now wanting to bring some of those configured goods that have a lot of dependencies and a lot of complexity to it and expose those in their commerce site, and they simply can't do it with what they have today. And so, you know, we're seeing that. We're also seeing this trend of moving to, you know, we'll call it anything as a service, right? The days of a one-time sale and then walking away, we're really seeing those things, you know, end. And I don't care what you buy today, there's some kind of monthly plan that goes along with it as well. And so you have a lot of businesses that are also going through that process right now, trying to figure out what can we monetize to get this recurring, whether it's monthly, quarterly, annual revenue. But what it's really pointed to is the fact that where CPQ for so long was looked at as a sales enablement tool, it's really grown to be so much more than that now, right? Where it's really this middle office piece that's going to enable so many different things, right? Whether it's that configuration of your more complex goods to expose it to a website, if it's setting up your different subscription terms, payment terms, whatever it may be, to be able to start capitalizing on that recurring revenue, or if it's starting to use this as almost a middleware tool for punching out to a lot of different, you know, a lot of different systems. You know, Rohit brought up the diagram of how the demand is going up, and a lot of our customers are struggling right now with being able to accurately, quote the lead time to actually get the product, or to get the product into people's hands. And so leveraging a tool like CPQ to bring in more of those ancillary systems that are going to start paint a better picture. We're seeing all of that happening right now. So I would wager that a lot of the folks that are going to be checking boxes on this, I would be surprised if they're only checking one.
Yep, and that's what we're seeing. So I can share. Thanks, everyone. We got a bunch of votes in. What we're seeing as the biggest struggle, sort of from biggest to smallest, is performance speed is our top, followed by user experience. 33% say that their struggle with backend integration. Then they can't handle the quote complexity, and finally the smallest one, which is a testament to everyone who's participating on the call, is 60% say their biggest struggle is internal adoption and usage, which I think everyone should be lauded for, because we know that that's a hard hurdle as well. So thanks everyone for your participation. So we'll go on to our myth, right? The first myth, that moving to enterprise CPQ is going to be too expensive and too time consuming. Ken, I'll let you take the jump on this one.
I would wager that it's too expensive not to. Just with all of the challenges and everything that we've talked about, there are companies out there that are figuring this out, right? That took advantage of this downtime, or maybe they were already in process, but they took advantage of this time to modernize and do the things that we're talking about doing. And I think when you start looking at some of the stats out there, that I think they say 60-70% of people have done the research before they even pick up the phone and call you. The stat that comes out from inside sales that basically says that the first rat to the cheese wins the business, or meaning the company that can turn that quote around faster can get it out to the can get it out to the business. I don't know if there's a better time to do it, right? And I think that the folks that continue to spin their wheels, good enough is good enough, or whatever it may look like, are going to find themselves, I think, in a world of hurt, catching up with the other businesses that are taking advantage of this time to leverage what we like to refer to as total commerce, right? Which is CPQ and the commerce together to provide that buy anywhere experience whenever you want to, however you want to. It's critical to do it. So I would go back and say, I don't know if you can afford to not do it right now. Rohit?
Yeah, I mean, spot on. I guess I will just kind of fall on that gravy train, Ken, and really talk about expense is all a concept. For me, it's relative to value. And so it's not so much about how expensive it is or how time consuming it is, because it doesn't have to be. I mean, in absolute terms, even it could be relatively inexpensive as far as enterprise software goes, but the value is immense. And the ROI usually is, less than a year, if done correctly, because you can do this iteratively. So let's just talk about an example. All I hear about everywhere right now, Ken, is subscriptions. I need to grow my revenue, and I need to think outside the box, and I either want to have recurring sales of my off-the-shelf products, or I want to be able to sell my services on top of my manufactured good as a subscription. I want to sell software on top of my manufactured good as a subscription. I want to sell the maintenance as a subscription. And a lot of people are struggling with how to do that, because subscription is complex stuff, right? You've got revenue recognition. You've got the tie into different kind of configurations. You've got it being a living asset. If you need to be able to add more products to the subscription, if you need to be able to take it away, billing, all that stuff, right? Well, how do you enable subscriptions if you don't have CPQ? It's really, really hard. If you're a mid-market to an upscale enterprise level manufacturer, or financial services, or healthcare, or telco, having all your complex configurations, your pricing and your quoting in your ERP or in spreadsheets is basically a no-go for being able to enable subscriptions, unless you're going to kind of kludge it together. And that's not a sustainable solution for the future. So your fastest path to be able to do subscriptions, and again, I'm just giving one example here, is to first get those complex configurations and those complex pricings out of those older systems and into a tool that was built to host it, to manage it, to maintain it, to augment it and grow with your business. And then, Oracle's got a phenomenal subscription cloud product that just sits right on top of it. And so when the conversation comes up, it's too expensive or it's too time consuming. Again, if you want to be easier to do business with, you really don't have a lot of choices here if you have a business of any kind of complexity. Now, I'll also quickly touch on what Sarah mentioned, that, hey, we need to be able to do change management where we can integrate these new user experiences into our existing processes. Spot on. You have to. So everyone that's having issues with that, that's a complex thing that needs to get done. But that's with any enterprise software. The user experience, spot on. You've got to design the right user experience. But these things are no longer as hard as they used to be to do. Where this isn't 2012, where many of these CPQ products were coming up and kind of revolutionizing the way that people are handling their complex quoting and pricing and configuration. In 2021 and 2022, there's been a ton of advancements in the ability to create custom user experiences in order to make sure that complex processes are already built in so that you don't need to heavily customize the software, and then therefore the change management pieces become easier. So kind of a long-winded answer, but there's a lot there, and the ROI is just phenomenal.
Yeah, Rohit, one thing I would add to that is, I've had the benefit over my almost 15 years of selling here at Oracle to sell our ERP applications, our CX applications, and now sitting here in the CPQ space. And the thing that excites me the most about this product is talking to our customers, because having sold the other products, and I don't care what software vendor you are, you're always leading with very compelling metrics of the improvement that that this product has brought to your business. And the exciting thing for me with CPQ is it's the first product that I've worked with that is bringing direct benefit to the customers, right? I remember the first customer I ever sat down with, it was a med device company 6 years ago when I started selling the product, and I asked them, what's the impact to your business? And they said, well, our industry grows at a 2 to 3% clip. We're growing at 3.5 to 4% clip, and we attribute that excessive growth directly to CPQ. And that's just one customer. I mean, we have countless stories like that, to your point about the ROI, Rohit, really start to build back to a much faster path to ROI than some of the other products will be, because it's directly contributing to the revenue, right? And we're going to talk about UI a little bit later, but for the folks out there that are talking about struggling with adoption, well, that UI and that adoption thing oftentimes go hand in hand. And I know that that's a subject that we're going to get into a little bit later. But look, I guess I would put a pin in this one and saying there aren't a whole lot of products out there that are going to bring the hard, quantifiable, and justifiable ROI that a CPQ project is going to bring.
Great. There's a lot there. Thank you both. So we're gonna hop to our myth 2, and myth 2 is, I can't use Oracle CPQ because my other platforms aren't Oracle. So
I love
where
this
do we
one.
go from here?
Well, so I'll take it from the sales guy perspective first, right? We've been doing CPQ since, I believe, 1990, right? Oracle CPQ started as big machines, one of the pioneers in the space, and we've got productized integration to whether it's Oracle the Oracle Sales Cloud, it's Salesforce.com or Microsoft, but we've also integrated to a number of other CX applications on the front end. And on the back end, I know we're up over, I think, 30 different ERP systems that we've integrated to. I think our largest, one of our largest projects that a customer had to do was integrating to 11 different ERPs. I mean, I can't even fathom what that diagram looked like, but yeah, I mean, 11 different ERPs at one time. And so, guys, I would like to think that one of the things that Oracle is known for is being a data company and a database company, right? And we put a ton of emphasis on making sure that that information flows from CPQ to your back end, because a really snazzy UI is great, but if you've got no way to get your data from a quote back into recognizing the revenue, in the proper system, what good are you doing? And so I think that that's the myth that we can easily bust just by, talking about the long list of customers that we have. When you think about the fact that Salesforce's largest customers are doing CPQ with us, I'd say probably still 65 to 70% of our user base is integrating to Salesforce on the front end because of our deep history with Salesforce. And then you bring in our ERP expertise between JD Edwards, PeopleSoft, EBS, and now the Fusion suite of applications, not to mention the countless customers that we have that are doing this with SAP in the back end. This is an easy one to bust. Rohit, you can talk about it from the architecture and the implementation perspective.
Yeah, same thing. Most of our customers have either Salesforce CPQ or Salesforce CRM or Microsoft Dynamics. So, right off the bat, it's just not a fact that you have to have an Oracle complete e-business suite or suite of applications in order to implement CPQ well. The thing that a lot of us forget when we're evaluating these products, first of all, look, all these products are successful because they do something good, right? So I'm not here to say that the old Stillbik product is bad, or 3Kit is bad, or Oracle CPQ is the only game in town. But the reality is, I think it's important to recognize what you're trying to achieve. And so if we agree, let's just say it, Ken, I mean, you work for Oracle, but let's put the rat on the table that when it comes to CRM, Salesforce has market dominance. And let's also put the rat on the table that Oracle CPQ used to be called something called Big Machines. And Big Machines used to be an independent platform that used to integrate with Salesforce all the time. So the DNA and the backend architecture of Oracle CPQ as an independent platform, it went after being able to integrate with Salesforce CRM really, really well. And that's why we have no problem integrating it into Salesforce CRM. The data models and all the pre-built integrations and the data architecture is all there. For the parts that you talked about, executing these use flow, these user stories of end-to-end, quote to cash type of models. So that right off the bat. The other thing I think that's really important to understand, though, when you're talking about data integration and architecture, is that if you take a look at most B2B organizations, again, I'm talking mid-market enterprise, they're all going to have CRM, but they're also all going to have ERP. And what you really want is if you have any type of complexity, is you want a CPQ solution that natively integrates with both. Now, Oracle then is really the biggest game in town, other than SAP, as it relates to ERP solutions. And when you're really looking at that Oracle CPQ then suite, I think it excels in two areas. One is these native integrations with not only Oracle back office, but then also things like Salesforce CRM. And then second is it was always known and continues to hold their kind of top right type of place in being able to have the configurability to meet the most complex organizations' needs. So if you have really complex BOMs, bill of materials, if you have complex order flows, if you have complex configurations, Oracle CPQ is still the gold star. And now with some of the more recent releases with the Jet UI and the ability to build it either headless user interfaces or leverage Jet UI to build more modern experience flows, it really has kind of catapulted it to the only game in town, I think, if you have complex scenarios and want to build easy to use user interfaces. So I know we're going to talk about UI a little bit later, but from an architecture side, that's what we're seeing. Steelbrick, phenomenal product, built for, I think, directly to sit on top of the Steelbrick. Even though it used to be non-Salesforce, Steelbrick was started and was only built to sit on top of the Salesforce data model. So it's not really built to sit on top of any other kind of CRM. So when you take a look at SteelBrick, as it's built to sit on top of the Salesforce CRM, it's supposed to handle a very kind of narrow purview of what CPQ is supposed to do. And if you have that purview, you got to look at it. I got to say that. But if you have a broader purview, or you're trying to integrate it with a complex back-end systems, like an ERP, like a PIM, for example, it wasn't really designed and built for that. And that's why, again, both back in the day before the acquisitions and today, the Oracle CPQ product, I think, remains number one in being able to manage complex configurations and workflows.
I think the interesting thing about this product is, I don't know if we've got another product in our suite that does a better job of really describing the shift that even Oracle has taken in applications and integration, right? Because I remember seeing a quote from Larry back the late 90s, early 2000s that said something along the lines of, best of breed is great for dog shows, but I don't think it has a place in enterprise software. Well, fast forward 20 years later, and again, I think the CPQ application, I mean, we used to, one of our messaging lines was integrated yet independent, right? So that now, if you are a best of breed shop, that your tradition is going out and buying the best CRM product, the best CPQ product, the best commerce product, the best ERP product, whatever it may be, we can handle that. And it's a huge shift for us.
Great. So, and I think this leads to our next myth, which is, okay, there are all these capabilities, there are all these strengths, they're all, right, it can handle all of this complexity. And I know we were talking about, building in 2012, but the myth really is, CPQ will look and feel like the 90s. I'll do this huge project, I'll build in all those capabilities, but what I'll have will still feel a little clunky, a little dated. And I know, Rohit, you have some visuals to share to help talk us down off of this myth ledge.
Yeah, look, again, it's all about kind of leveraging modern frameworks to be able to deliver and deliver easier what the business of today needs. So with the more modern Jet UI of Oracle CPQ, you can deliver some really, really nice user experiences. But it's more than look and feel, right? I mean, Kelly Rader, our head of DXM, if she was in this call, she would talk about this conversation, and Sergio, who's our head of user experience, they would talk about the fact that any user experience needs to be kind of geared towards who's using it and what are the actual flows that they're trying to accomplish. And you're trying to make those flows as easy as possible to use. And so I've got some screens I can show you guys. They're wireframes, really, because, privacy concerns, we can't actually show the real screens. But these are actual, with names scrubbed and whatnot, screens that we built out on the more modern CPQ platform. So let me show you. I'll share my screen here. And again, Sarah, if you could let me know if you can see the screen.
Yep.
Good.
You can see them.
Perfect. Yeah. So, more modern CPQ, just checkout experiences that you might be used to, right? So if you're a sales rep, this is an example for a sales rep, and you want to build a quote, for example, a traditional circa 2012 CPQ screen wouldn't look anything like this. And now when you're looking at modern journeys, you want to be able to forecast what the journey is going to look like on every screen. So you can see here what we've been able to do in CPQ is show that right up here. If you're going to be building a quote, you're first going to be collecting your customer info or loading it. You're going to be looking at your product catalog to add to a quote. You're going to be creating a contract. You're going to be looking at the overall costs. You're going to look at the overall info. You're going to look at the credits, and you're going to look at the quote details, and you're going to send it out, right? So that's forecasting what the flow looks like for this particular client. So you might be, the customer info, this can be loaded up from some back-end system. It could be loaded up from a CRM like Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics or Sales Cloud from Oracle. All the customer info is just automatically loaded up. Once that integration is there, you'll be bringing in the different types of billing, accounts payable, who it's going to be going to. All those addresses can be preloaded, and you're going to get this really nice kind of UI to be able to talk about, all right, these are my customers. You can also bring in, here you can see that this particular client does have Subscription Cloud. So they're going to be able to bring in current subscription information, right? What are the active subscriptions? What are the expired subscriptions? Is there a reseller that they want to give credit to, et cetera? Then once you've entered the customer info, I'm just going to quickly fly through this. You're going to be able to load product details, right? You're going to build your quote. So you might be able to, select through a drop-down. You could also have more of a traditional e-commerce type of look. That would be something like this. Again, no pictures loaded, but right, you could have, faceted. So you could within the CPQ itself show a faceted shopping experience, what we call a PLP, product listing page. You could show those type of experiences. Again, if it's a traditional kind of more of a manufacturer, you'd have this more traditional quick order type of screen. You could also have both. Here's another example of a configurable screen, right? So maybe you not only want to select off the SKU products, but you want to add configurations. You want to talk about mandatory parts, recommended parts. All these kind of product details can percolate through. After you add everything to your quote unquote quote, pun intended, you're going to be able to go to, I'm going to jump around here, your contract info, right? So again, this is going to be all loaded potentially from your ERP, your back-end contracting, or it could be within CPQ itself. And you're going to have your contract number, the contract ID, modifier numbers. Again, these are very, very specific to specific clients. You could even have different kind of contract layouts and templates. So if a specific product needs a specific type of contract, you could specify all those. And again, very easy to use. So I'm talking less about the functionality of CPQ here and the user experience, so that this particular client's employees were complaining that they have to go all over the place to put this information in. So we were able to design with our user experience team a really nice, elegant workflow for them to have a very clean, linear type of quoting process, quote to cash process, so that their jobs are easier. They're going to now be easier to do business with because they don't have to go to 30 different screens to create a quote. Once they've filled out all the contract info, they'll be able to jump to the cost summary. You'll see here a cost summary is right. It'll have all the different products, any kind of discounts that you want to show, taxes, freight, contracts or price exceptions, etc. You can add discounts here. Again, that's a feature of CPQ, but here's a very easy way of showing it to your sales reps. Once you're done there, you're going to jump to the actual confirmation of the order. So, what's our purchase order number, any kind of documents that you put in there, from a purchase order document to an ordering document, any kind of shipping, freighting, any kind of one-liner flags that you have to have, any kind of, this is a large contract. Again, these are very specific to this client. They need to be able to specify these things for their particular workflows that kick off downstream flows and user experiences for shipping and supply chain. From the order info then, again, we're just following along from the top here. You're going to go the credit UI here. You're going to saying, okay, what sales reps are going to get credit, what percentage of the credit they're going to receive. So again, CPQ does allow for that kind of revenue, the commission recognition piece. And then finally, you're going to have your final quote. Oops, sorry about that. Oh, of course, I lost it here. Let me see if I can go back. Well, I don't want to belabor the point to log in again, but I would have just been able to show the final order UI and the quote UI before the quote goes out. The point being that this does not look like your traditional, grandfather of CPQ screen, right? What we're really trying to get across here is that leveraging modern experiences, leveraging the right user research, you can really develop nice, easy to use screens for sales reps. You can also expose CPQ to your distributors and your partners so they could have a very similar experience. And that kind of just, and I think, Sarah, you said it was the second most common or the second biggest complaint with the user experience. Yep. So I hope you can see now that with the more modern CPQ architecture, as Oracle revamps a lot of these architectures to be more modern with headless UIs, or with their own Jet UI within, where CPQ itself is serving up the screens, you can have some really, really awesome user experiences. But I would say that that doesn't mean that the user experience is just going to, quote unquote, create themselves, right? You've got to invest the time in asking your sales reps and creating those personas, or talking to distributors about what is their flow, what will make their lives easier. Design it, and then very quickly translate that to a software package like Oracle CPQ.
I think you'd almost argue that with the new UI, that we released a few years ago that you've actually got more flexibility with our product than a lot of the competitors' products out there. I mean, Rohit showed you one flavor of what a CPQ could look like. If we were to show you our internal instance, it looks nothing like that. And if we show you another customer instance, it looks nothing like that. And so I really do like the flexibility options that we present to our customers now, whether you want to go headless, like you're talking, whether you want to leverage our Jet UI, it really opens up the possibilities so that, you know, once done correctly, the user adoption issue should go away for you, you know, because you're doing this with some thought in mind, some planning, and designing something that's going to work for your people.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we're seeing that customer journey really changing on the side of your sales reps, you know, with they might not be sitting at a desk with their phone, you know, to their right. They might be on the road, they might be at home. So it really changes what that UI needs to look like to best enable your sales team.
Well, and that's a great point, Sarah, because it's something that we really didn't touch on, but I think the power of develop it once, deploy it multiple times, right? So giving you the ability to set up your configuration rules and everything else that not only your inside seller is going to use, but your resellers and potentially even your customers, but also for your sellers, whether they're doing that from their laptop, from their iPad, or from their iPhone or their Android phone, having that responsive design to be able to, you know, to fit into whatever device you're working from, I think is crucial as well. And being able to design different user experiences depending on the channel that they're going to come in through is critical as well, right? Because that user adoption thing, if you only focus on the user adoption for your internal sellers, well, in a lot of cases, you've forgotten about a huge majority of your buying audience, whether it's through resellers or through your direct customers. And so that's where working with a firm like you guys is so crucial to make sure that you're putting that thought in.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have one more poll to share with everyone, which we kind of are all talking around, which is, you know, that the revenue question, you know, for your business, where are you seeing revenue? Is your CPQ revenue bigger? Is e-commerce bigger? Are you not there yet on one or either of those fronts? So we look forward to your response, and then Rohit and Ken, I'd love to hear your thoughts about the revenue opportunities. I know, Rohit, you touched on subscription and how CPQ sort of builds the foundation for building that subscription. And Ken, you've also talked about the clear revenue increases you've seen with CPQ launch. Okay. All right. Well, interesting responses so far. I'll give everyone a couple minutes or 30 more seconds.
I think this one will be interesting to see, because my gut is that we're going to hear people telling us that, you know, there's a larger chunk coming from their non-commerce than, you know, than their commerce side, especially in a manufacturing company that's focusing on B2B. And then I would wager that if done correctly, even as your e-commerce revenue grows, well, the amount of revenue that's pushing through your CPQ tool is going to continue to grow as well. So my gut is we're going to see that CPQ is probably the bigger slice of that, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I would say it's not a either or, it's an and. None of my, or I should say our customers that have commerce, again, on the B2B side, don't have CPQ. I mean, they have it. And commerce leverages the CPQ instance to deliver the configurations, to deliver the pricing. If we're putting a UI on the front end to, instead of buying a product, to just generating a quote, that's all done through, from a UX standpoint, it's done through the commerce instance, but it's feeding back in to the CPQ instance to deliver a lot of that data. Because what's the alternative, right, Sarah? I mean, the alternative is that we're going to have to custom build something on top of someone's spreadsheets. We're going to have to custom build something on top of someone's ERPs, because those ERPs, unless you've migrated an ERP cloud, don't have the APIs. So you're going to have to first invest in building a layer in between commerce and your ERP to expose the content as services, and that's going to require quite a bit of work. And so what we found is that in order for people, rather than invest in building up that services layer to expose those services from an ERP and maintain them, they're like, well, you know what? This is not the right place for me to maintain this information anyway. I'll move it to CPQ. I'll start generating revenue and quote revenue from my CPQ instance. And then when I'm ready to expose this directly to customers or potentially to distributors and resellers or other partners, so that they can buy directly from us without interfacing directly with the rep, they could log into that commerce instance. And because I'll say one more thing on this, here's what we've seen. The conversation isn't about moving from full service to self-service. None of my clients, and nor would I recommend this, are trying to not have any interactions with their customers. Their businesses are too complex to do everything online. It's about how do you seamlessly jump from full service to self-service back to full service, right? It's this constant play. It's this constant dance that if you run a B2B enterprise, and you're working with resellers or you're working with clients, there's going to be certain things that they want to do just online. They don't want to talk to anybody. I want to reorder a part. I want to very quickly understand what parts I need for my machine. They might not want to talk to somebody about that. They might want to just go online, log in. When was my last service? When is my next service due? All that stuff can be either exposed through a CPQ or a commerce instance. Other clients are going to want to, hey, I want to talk to somebody. And they're going to say, hey, can you quickly spin up a quote for me for this really complex configuration that I need? And then that's where, again, we're saying that you need to empower your organization with user experience for sales reps, for resellers, and for customers in order to be able to do this. And again, the CPQ piece is right smack in the middle of it. CPQ is necessary for empowering your sales reps to better create these quotes really quickly. And then for the organization to move that through a supply chain. It's critical for your partners, because if your sales reps can't do it, then your partners can't do it, and your partners are going to need the same capabilities. And it's critical for your customers in case you're going to be exposing in e-commerce or subscriptions, because you're not going to be tying that back into your ERP or your spreadsheets. You're going to be tying that back into CPQ as well. It's that common kind of foundational piece that's going to empower revenue growth across all your different personas, sales reps, partners, and customers.
Well, Rohit, we were wrong, because e-commerce revenue was the winner in this poll.
Yeah, well, for me though, Ken, a lot of people don't look at CPQ as a revenue. It's as an enabler, right? So a lot of people aren't actually allowing purchases through CPQ, right? They're just creating quotes, and the revenue recognition comes not from CPQ itself, versus commerce is very simple. Collect my credit card. So I would be really interested in learning, for the people that are saying that they're not getting CPQ revenue, is it because they don't have CPQ, or is it because they just don't recognize, and you don't place the order in CPQ itself? The order comes in through a different solution.
Great.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, and feel free to follow up in the chat or in the questions box. So, I think we have time for a couple of questions. If anyone wants to ask, you can respond in that little questions box or the chat box. And we will try to get to yours. If we don't, we will follow up with you directly. So first question to come in, should we do CPQ all in one go? And I know I've heard I've heard you both say, it can be C, then P, then Q. It can be P, then Q, then C, right? You can build this how you want, but what are sort of the pros and cons to CPQ all in one push, or doing something more iteratively?
So that's a great question. I guess I'll take it from the Oracle side. We have a number of customers that obviously are using the C, the P, and the Q, but folks, we got a fair number of customers that have decided, hey, we're going to start with the C. We're going to leave our pricing and quoting in another system right now, move that in a later time. We got other customers that their big use case for leveraging CPQ is for managing pricing agreements, right? There's not a whole lot of configuration that comes on. and there's really not a whole lot of quote output that comes in, but they've got specific pricing agreements set up for different vendors and need a good way to track that. So, you know, I had this conversation with a customer earlier in the week, and they were asking the same question, and you know, my question back to them is, where's the fire burning the hottest right now, right? Because the beauty of CPQ is you don't have to take it all on at one time, and so address that fire that's burning brightest first, and move the other pieces in once you get that fire under control. Rohit, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, for me, the answer is it depends. I mean, it's so dependent on the specific organization in terms of whether they need to do a big bang or whether they're going to be iterative. I would say that you can have value from both ways, and it really depends on. So, what does it depend on? A lot of it depends on how modern is your overall architecture already, right? So, are you going to be using it for configuration? Are you going to be using it for pricing? Are you going to be using it for quoting? Because if, like Ken mentioned, if you don't have highly configurable products, but you just want to do light configuration, then you can start with just managing all your pricing contracts and all your kind of complexities on who gets what price and what are the discount flows and all that kind of good stuff. But if you already have all that, and maybe you're fine with where all that pricing is, and you just want a much easier quoting tool so that you can go to quote to cash faster, well, then you can tie into your pricing and bring that in later. So yeah, Sarah, I apologize, I can't give a more granular answer. It's so dependent on the organization, on what exactly they're trying to achieve by when, what their ROI targets are, what's the burning fire that they're trying to solve, where are they going to see their growth coming from over the next 3 years, you know, kind of taking this full circle to our conversation this morning or earlier this morning. But yeah, we're happy to have that conversation if someone's got some specifics, and we can definitely follow up with them on it.
Great. I think we have time for one more. How can we measure ROI on our CPQ project?
I'll give you a great example of one. I think there's a handful of KPIs that you can look at. Again, I'll just give 2 examples. If you're using CPQ because you're trying to lessen the burden on your sales reps, right? Then a very easy way of measuring ROI, if that was your use case, if that was the burning business need, I need to empower my sales reps to be easier to do business with. It's just simply looking at their productivity and efficiency. So you don't actually even have to look at, are they selling more? You can take a look at their efficiency and how much time they're spending in building quotes. We had a customer that within 1 quarter showed $2 million of ROI. How'd they measure it? They said, okay, today our sales reps spend anywhere from 3 to 4 hours to generate a quote. After the implementation, it took them about on average 30 minutes. So they're like, all right, if our average sales rep makes X amount and they're creating this many quotes a quarter and they're saving this much, they came up with a number of $2 million in just that quarter of time saved, allowing the sales rep then to be freed up to work on larger sales pursuits, to invest more time to building relationships with their customers, and to, quite frankly, have a much better response time to their clients. So if they're trying to generate 6 quotes and they know each quote's going to take them 3 to 4 hours and they're going all over the place, those clients that are waiting for quotes, they're getting impatient, right? So that's one. So I'm not going to go into that much detail for the other ones, but you could definitely look at revenue output. If you're actually generating revenue from your CPQ, you could take a look at from a technology standpoint. If you're a CIO or you're a CTO and you're implementing CPQ, the amount of resources and support tickets that you're having to respond to because your contracts or your pricing or in your ERP or in Excel spreadsheets, and as an organization, the amount of time that it's taking you to service those, maintain those, keep those up to date, those could be, and then measuring how much less time you're spending once CPQ is installed, that, again, efficiency and productivity gains can be measured. So it's not just revenue. A lot of the CPQ ROI is generated in productivity gains and efficiency gains that you can, as long as you know what problem you're trying to solve before you go in, you can measure what you're doing now, you can measure how it turns out after, and you can measure that ROI.
Yeah, I mean, a couple other ones that come to mind. Number one, tracking attach rates with cross-sell, upsell stuff before CPQ, after CPQ, right? Because it is a reason a lot of customers come to us, because they feel like they're leaving money on the table by not adding, value-added products to the bill of materials. I think another one that we haven't talked about today, but is a critical one, is your margins, right? Because one of the things that we've historically seen is a lot of times folks make decisions on, is this a good discount for what we're offering, based on what we gave to them in the past. So if we always gave them a 65% discount, well, let's give them a 65% discount. Or we have a tough time winning in this industry, so we need to race to the bottom to win here. And with some of the improvements that we've made leveraging AI and machine learning, you've now got some detail that's going to tell you, okay, yeah, look, you can win this deal at a 60% discount, but history tells us, based on a geographical region or a product set or the customer, that 53% gives you the same opportunity of winning as 60%, right? So being able to start looking in at the margin control. And then, the other two that I would say was tracking how many quotes you have to redo because of errors, right? Whether it's the wrong product mix, you left a required component off there, you've got the wrong pricing, whatever it may be. A lot of customers that we work with, they're spending an inordinate amount of time coming back and doing rework on quotes that they've already done. And then the final one that I would say is look at your time to revenue, right? Because one of the things that we see a lot of times is you bring that new person on, it takes them, however long it takes to finally get that customer that's ready to come to the altar and say, I do, and now it's time to build the quote. But all of this tribal knowledge that you need is stored in the heads of people, right? And so for one of our customers, one of a big compelling reason to move forward was reducing that time to revenue, because now you're taking this tribal knowledge and these best practices that your senior sellers just have in their heads, and now you're putting it into the application, leveraging things like guided selling and those kind of things to push a customer down the right way to buy the right customer, hopefully shortening the amount of time that it's going to take for them to finally put that first order document in front of somebody. So those are just a couple of others that you can consider when you're kind of trying to figure out, how are we going to gauge the success of this project?
Awesome. Well, we're right at time. Thank you both. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Rohit. You can find us all on LinkedIn. I will be following up with this webinar with a video on demand, so you can reach out to me anytime. Just reply to that email. When this webinar is over in just a minute, you'll receive a short survey. We'd really appreciate you taking 30 seconds to just share your feedback. And with that, thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Rohit. Have a great
Thanks,
rest
folks.
of your day.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Bye.